But we're going to dive right in here tonight, like we do every Monday night, to start to pull apart some of these different sections of the Ohio real estate salesperson exam. If you could, as I ask you to every week, go ahead and pop into the chat and let me know what you want to cover this week. What's been giving you grief? What's holding you up? Where do you want to spend some time together? I know we've gotten some great suggestions and commentary from folks over the weeks, so please feel free to do that, to throw those my way. If you don't have anything, rest assured that I've got a couple things that I could recommend as good uses of your time, but I'll go ahead and give the next 30 seconds for anyone that wants to type in the chat what they want to work on tonight. The other thing that I'll comment while the chat box loads up is we've gotten some notes from a couple different people. If they're having trouble scheduling through PSI, whenever you get your notification through PSI, they're going to send that along. Your candidate ID number is your license number with the state. And you'll want to enter that in without the SAL period leading and just numbers only. And then, of course, guys, when you schedule your exam, which trust me, you're ready, you can do this. When you schedule your exam, please let me know. I like to put a little note in my calendar just so I know that you're testing. And if my schedule allows, I'd love to send you a quick text or a quick email to wish you luck that day. And if you guys, if there's anybody out there who is like, hey, I haven't heard anything from PSI. I'm kind of in the dark here. The state hasn't sent me anything. Please reach out to me about that as well. I'm going to drop my contact info in the chat in case anyone doesn't have it. And we'll go from there. But please keep us posted on when you're scheduled so we can support you and celebrate you. And guys, as always, if you have questions, you don't have to wait till Monday night. Shoot me an email, shoot me a quick text, let me know what you're struggling with, and I'll try and get you a quick response, okay? All right, so looking in the chat box, looks like contracts, real estate calculation, and terms. Ray, if there is a specific section that you're struggling with more than another from a term standpoint, let me know that and we'll get to that. Let's go ahead and start with real estate calculations. That is going to be that's one I don't feel like we've hit in a while. And so we'll just dive right in there. All right. All right, here we go. Question number one. A real estate agent receives a commission of $12,681 as half of the total commission for the sale price of a property that was $563,600. What rate of commission did the broker charge? A, 3%, B, 4.5%, C, 6%, or D, 12%? And just go ahead, A, B, C, or D, drop it in the chat box once you have it. We'll answer with what the group feels is the best answer, and then we will go from there. And guys, if you don't know, or you're just paralyzed by the sight of numbers, put a question mark in the chat box so that we can, if I know that a bunch of people don't know it, we'll spend a little bit more time here. All right, so some B's are starting to fill up the chat box. So we'll go with B, and that's going to be correct. Now, if you can see the calculator on the screen, I'm going to go ahead and work this problem out. So a couple key things here. One, the total commission on a property divided by the price is going to give you the rate, right? And so we know that 12,681 is half of the total commission. So we want to take 12,681 and double it. That's the first thing we're going to do because two halves make a whole. So the total commission on this property is $25,362. Now take that and divide it by 563 600. And that's going to give you 0.045. To get to a percentage, you just multiply by 100. It's 4.5%, right? And that's right. See, Jeff called himself out there. If you miss that part around half, and listen, guys, it's not just, it's not always just me talking. Maybe I spoke a little fast, I apologize. But when you're in the exam and you're jamming through these things, it's really easy to skip over a word like that. So, take your time on those. All right. The subject property is a 3-bedroom ranch with 2 full baths and a 2-car garage. In the same neighborhood, a nearly identical home with 4 bedrooms just sold for $110,000. An appraiser estimates the 4th bedroom's value at $5,000. Based on this, what's the subject's value? Is it A, 105, B, 110, C, 115, or D, 90? All right, so we got A's and C's coming in. So let's just talk through this one. The subject property is 3 bedrooms. The comparison property is 4 bedrooms. So the comparison property sold for 110 and has an additional bedroom at 5,000. Since we're down a bedroom, we subtract 5,000 and it should be 105, right? So, that's just a matter of understanding the value of one, the value of a room, and then where do I go from there, right? And so the subject property is the one that we're looking at, 3 bedrooms instead of 4, minus 5,000 for the lack of a bedroom. All right, a property owner pays $25 per front foot for a 600-foot by 1,452-foot lot. How much did he pay for the lot? Was it A, 16, B, 15, C, 14.5, or D, $15,500? All right, couple B's in the chat box. I'm going to go with that. The front foot is always the first foot, right? So when you pay $25 per front foot, you do 25 times 600, which we can do over here. And that's 15,000. Pretty straightforward. The first number, the number first is going to be your number of front feet. All right, a property sells at $289,000 at a cap rate of 9.75%. What would Deborah offer if she wants a cap rate of 10%? Is it A, $281,775, B, $2.5 million and change, C, $308,975, or D, $2.4125 million? All right. So we got some question marks. We got some, not sure. It's actually a 2-part question, guys. 2-part question here. So the first thing we want to do is get to the net income value, which is going to be 289,000 times 0.0975. Right. So this property is making, free and clear, before mortgage, $28,177.50. Now, to get that to a 10 cap, we just divide by 0.1, right? Because to get from price and rate to income, we just multiply. To get from price or from income and rate, we divide income by rate. So divide by 0.1. The answer is going to be A. So here's one way to remember this and to cross-check yourself, right? If the cap rate is going up and the income is staying the same, the price has to go down, right? So a higher cap rate means a lower price at the same income because that's the rate of return. All right, big one here. Bill was thinking of purchasing an apartment building. He wants 10% return on his investment and asked to see the books. There are 4 apartments on each floor of a 3-story building. The rent for an apartment on the first floor is $400, and the rent increases by $50 per month per apartment. Bill noticed a rent loss of vacancy and collections of 8, and when he figured the operating expenses, they averaged $610 a month. With all of this information, what should Bill pay for the building, rounding to the nearest 1,000? All right. So I won't make you guys labor through this one because it's a bit of a long problem, but I'll work it. For you so you can see. So there are 4 apartments at 400, 4 at 450, and 4 at 500, right? Each floor increases by $50. So the little trick here is that if there's 4 at 450, 4 at 4, and 4 at 5, it's the same as having 12 at $450, right? Does that make sense? Because you average everything together and it's like you're getting 450 for each apartment. So now that's my monthly income. So now I'm going to multiply that by 12 to get to my annual gross income. And then I'm going to multiply it by 0.92. And my reason for doing that is because I have this loss of 8%, right? So 100% minus 8% is 92%. So I multiply this by 0.92. So the number for total revenues, net revenues, after losses from vacancy and collections is 59,616. I'm just going to put that in the chat so we have it. So now I need to multiply, or I need to figure out what's my annual operating expenses. So that's 610 times 12. So that's 7,320. So now I will take 59,616 minus 7,320. And my gross revenue, or sorry, my net income on this property is now $52,296. I want a 10% rate of return. So I'm going to divide by 0.1, just like we did in the last problem. And that's going to get me to 522,960, which should be our correct answer. And it is. So pretty multi-step problem there, but if you know that I need to get gross revenue minus losses for net revenue, and then take out all my operating expenses to get to net income, that net income on an annualized basis is going to be the number that I need to divide by my cap rate or my rate of return to get to the value of the property. All right, property owner paid $25 per front foot. The lot's 600 by 1452. How many acres did he buy? I regret to inform you guys, but you will in fact need to know the number of square feet in an acre. All right, Vanessa and Kyle are both in for A. The answer is A. So we need to get our total square footage here. So just 600 times 1452. Whoops. 600 times 1452. That's going to give us a little over $870,000 in total square footage. And then I got to divide that by 43,560. That's how many square feet are in an acre. Divide by that, you get 20 acres in this purchase. Question number 7. Joe and Mary want to add a recreation room. Their one-story home and garage together cover 1,600 square feet of the 75 by 110-foot lot. If local zoning limits the size of buildings to 25% of the land lot, what is the maximum floor area square footage that Joe and Mary can add to their home? All right, this is another multi-step one that I'm just going to work through for the sake of time. So first thing we need to do is say 75 times 110, right? I need to know the total square footage of the lot. Then I need to multiply that by 0.25 because of this zoning variance or zoning law. That gives me 25%. So that's 2,062.5 feet. And now I know the size of the existing home is 1,600, so I back that out. And I can build a property that's 462.5 square feet, right? So key to problems like this is to understand what's being asked, what's the biggest room I can build? Well, what's my constraint? Your constraint is 25% of the total lot. Well, what's the total lot? And then so once you work up to understanding that, you work back to get the answer. Joe is purchasing a property at $35 per front foot. How much did he pay for the front foot of the lot? It's a really poorly worded question. Just like the last one we saw, guys, 35 times 600 is what you're going to be gunning at here. And that's 21,000, right? Anytime you see front foot, somebody wants to know that it's the leading number is your front foot. So good job, Kyle, Stacy, and Jeff. The square footage of a 3-story building, 60 by 53, is A, 5940, B, 9540, C, 3180, or D, 6360 plus the garage. Excuse me. What is the square footage of this building? All right, Kyle and Stacy and Vanessa. There we go. I'm going to read the question again. Square footage of a 3-story building. So you guys were only halfway done with the problem. 60 times 53 is 3180. But then I have that much square footage on every floor, which gets us to 9540, which is the correct answer. And again, guys, you know how to do this problem, and this is the key, right? You can't give up easy questions like that on the test. Just be really careful when you're reading 3-story building, right? You see square footage and you go bang, bang, multiply, boom, there's the answer. I'm done. Make sure you read the question thoroughly. Question number 10, a property is 100 feet long by 100 feet wide. The property has a deed restriction that it requires setbacks of 10 feet on each side and 25 from the front and 30 feet from the back. How much of the property is available for building use? Is it A, 260, B, 10,000 square feet, C, 3,600, or D, 360 square feet? All right, Will, I see you. We'll get you a full-throated explanation here. Give anyone else that wants to a chance to answer. If you don't know or you're confused by this one, just go ahead and throw a question mark in the chat box. All right, guys, I'm going to throw up a little whiteboard action here. So you should all just see a white screen, and I'm going to draw this one out. So here's the deal, and I apologize because I'm drawing with a touchpad, so take it easy on me. All right, I got a 100 by 100 lot, and I got setbacks on all sides. Now, what that means is I can't build within a setback, right? So I need to go 10 feet in here and 10 feet in here because it says each side has a 10-foot setback. And then I have 25 feet on the front that I can't build. And 30, was it 30 feet on the back? Yeah. So this then becomes my new buildable area. And so 100 minus 10 minus 10 gets me to, or sorry, my width here, 100 minus 10 minus 10 is 80. And then my 25 feet off the front, 30 off the back means my depth is 45. So now, that's how a setback works. So now let's go back here to the to this, and we'll do 845. And that's 3,600. And that's going to be your right answer. So, and here's the thing, if it's 100 by 100, that's a 10,000 square foot lot. And if there are setbacks, the number will have to be less than 10,000 square feet. So that's how you know B is wrong. But the setbacks, you just take them down from the dimensions that are offered, and you'll get to where you're going. All right, guys, real estate calculations can be tricky. The hardest ones are always the ones that are multi-step problems. So just be prepared for that. When you start to see a bunch of that stuff, take your pencil and paper, and just, knock through it. You'll be fine. I saw property ownership in there. I know we haven't covered that. And I know we haven't covered that one in a while. So I'm going to pop in here real quick. This is another 10 question banger. So here we go. Question number 1. An example of natural attachment to real property is A, landscaping, B, a chain link fence, C, an electrical power pole, or D, a garden bench. All right, a lot of A's in the chat box, and that is correct. Of all the answers given, A and landscaping is the natural attachment. Garden benches are movable and considered personal property, right? Not real property. Fence is a man-made attachment, and a power pole belongs to the utilities company, right? So, imagine which one of these would an owner selling a property most likely take with them? You're not going to take the landscaping. Can't take the electric pole, it's not yours. The garden bench you can certainly pick up and throw in the bed of a truck. And a chain link fence is not attached to the property. It can come out of the ground. You could technically take that fence with you. Not many people would do that. All right, Rich buys a tract of land and receives an easement to cross Sam's property to access a community lake. Rich is benefiting from the easement, thus has an A, encumbrance, B, encroachment, C, dominant estate, or D, servient estate. Couple C's, couple D's. So we know it's not an encumbrance or an encroachment. So that feels good. I saw a C last in the chat box, so we'll go with that. So the thing to remember here is that the person benefiting is in a dominant position. The person giving the easement is in a servant or servicing or serves. So they're in a servient position. So if you're receiving a benefit through an easement, you have a dominant estate. If you're giving somebody else access or giving something up, you're in a servient estate. Next question. Subsurface rights, such as mineral rights, and the limited use of the air above the surface of real property are commonly referred to as A, actuaries, B, appliances, C, avionics, or D, appurtenances? All right, I'm seeing those D's, and you guys are right. Those are appurtenances. Nice try with avionics. It's tripping us up talking about air, but that's right. Appliances are personal properties. Actuaries are it's a job that somebody has. Actuarial scientists or mathematicians. Appurtenances are what we're looking for there. All right, guys. A garage door opener is often considered a fixture. As such, it would be an example of A, constructive annexation, B, actual annexation, C, adverse possession, or D, prescriptive easement. What's a garage door opener considered, or an example of? A couple A's in the chat box, and that's going to be the right answer. Actual annexation is going to be the physical attachment, right? Like it's actually attached and annexed, right? Like I'm, bolting something into the ground, or, I'm affixing this to the real property. Constructive annexation is what's going to be taking place here. It's where it's just something is closely related to a property that becomes a fixture. Like I'm not going to go use a garage door opener anywhere else. So it is constructively annexed to the property because its use is tied to the building in it. So it becomes a fixture. After a buyer purchases a property, he has a survey made and finds the neighbors recently built a fence on his land. This is an example of A, a party wall, whoop, whoop, B, an appurtenance, C, encroachment, or D, adverse possession. That's right, guys. That is encroachment. He's encroaching on the property. Adverse possession is acquiring the title to somebody else's land through occupancy. All right, attaching a fixture to real property, therefore making it part of real property is, all right, we should get this one. A, adverse possession, B, easement by prescription, C, actual annexation, or D, the doctrine of emblements. That's right. This one's going to be C, actual annexation, right? The doctrine of emblements refers to crops on leased land. Easement by prescription is obtained in the same way as adverse possession, but does not transfer title. So that'd be, I've been driving through, this back 40 of this guy's property to get to the other side of my land for 20 years. And so the easement just exists out of thin air. The actual annexation is the physical attachment of a fixture to real property. All right, real property rights are determined in the bundle of rights that includes the right to A, everything we're going to talk about here, B, grow flowers, C, sell at a cheap price, or D, build a house. All right, there's the A's in the chat box, and that's right. A bundle of rights is, represented in or shows fee simple ownership of a property, and that means you can use, enjoy, and dispose of the property in any which way you choose to do so. You want to grow flowers everywhere? Great, grow flowers. You want to build a house? Build a house. You want to sell it for a penny? Sell it for a penny. Those are all included in your bundle of rights in your real property rights. Which is considered an encumbrance but not a lien? A, a mechanic's lien, B, IRS taxes, C, a mortgage, or D, an easement? All All right, you guys are all over that one, and that's correct. A lien is one form of encumbrance, and it's a financial charge on the property. Easement's another, right? So these are both, they're both encumbrances. Mechanics lien is a lien, obviously. Tax liens through IRS taxes, and then the mortgage is actually a lien on the property as well. When a firm is not paid after furnishing materials for the construction of an apartment, the firm may file a deficiency judgment, B, writ of liability, C, mechanics lien, or D, estoppel certificate. That's right, guys. The mechanics lien goes to any contractor or person performing on a property that doesn't get paid. They can lien that property to ensure that they get paid, at which time it sells. A tenant farmer, upon being told the farm has been sold, may have to A, replant to assure the new landlord has income, B, vacate the property at once, C, plow under his crops, or D, vacate the property, but with the right to harvest crops at maturity. D. You guys all say D, and you're right. That's the doctrine of implements that we heard about earlier, and that gives you the right to those crops at maturity, but does not necessarily guarantee your right to access or occupy the property. All right, great job, guys. Let's dive into, I think I saw contracts, always a good one, contracts. Say it with me, the single biggest portion of your exam will be contracts. All right. A subdivision developer employs agent Sue to sell lots. John, a licensed agent, offers to buy lot B3 for 20,000 American dollars. And the sales contract is executed. However, through a typographical error that no one noticed, the contract is identified as lot D3, which was listed at 25,000. What is the contract status? A, voidable, B, void, C, invalid, or D, enforceable? All right, a lot of A's for voidable here, and that's correct. So it's voidable because technically, let's see here, John, or whoever John represents, John offers on the property for 20,000 and gets a property worth 25. So he's the party benefiting from this error. And so he has the opportunity to, I'm sorry, wait a minute. I want to make sure I don't tell you this, tell you the wrong thing, because this is a little bit of a gummy one. All agents and parties to transaction carefully writing documents, blah, 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 blah. Having an agent that does not relieve the client of responsibility. A mistake is mutual, material, and unintentional, free of negligence, may cause the contract to be voidable. In this case, it's voidable by the developer. That's right. So it's the injured party that has the option to void. So the developer is the person who, regardless of the mistake, which is mutual, they're the injured party. If they wanted to void the contract, they could. If they decide, hey, listen, as a show of good faith, we're going to go through with this, or we want to continue through with this because we didn't actually think we were going to sell lot D3, they can. So the developer can void this because they are the injured party. Injured parties of voidable contracts, like if you discovered fraud, well, even if you discover fraud, doesn't mean that the contract has to be immediately void. It's just voidable. And the frauded party, the party on the receiving end of the fraud, can still choose to go through with the transaction despite that. And so the developer, being the injured party here, selling a $25,000 property for $20,000, can void it, but doesn't have to. Michelle, I'll put the link for the additional training videos in the chat at the end of our time together today. All right, question number 2. Colin makes an offer to buy a seller's property and gives the sellers $2,000 of earnest money. Before the seller decides to accept the offer, Colin calls the seller and announces that he's withdrawing the offer and asks the seller to return the earnest money. Which statement's true? A, the seller gets to keep the earnest money. B, the broker gets to keep the earnest money. C, the buyer's entitled to the earnest money back. Or D, the buyer's breaching contract. You guys are all over this one. It's C. There is no contract, so that money never stopped being the buyer's. Never stopped being the buyer's money. All right, question number 3. Broker Alice conveys an offer from her clients to broker Betty, wherein Alice wishes to purchase a 300-acre farm by giving broker Betty's client $100,000, 2 one-year-old tractors, and 50 head of Angus cattle. What would the consideration offered by Alice's client be called? Would it be A, valuable, B, inadequate, C, good, or D, good and valuable? Correct answer here is going to be A. It is valuable. Valuable consideration is what's required to form a contract, and $100,000, 2 tractors, and 50 cows all have value. The adequacy of that, or whether or not that is valuable enough for the exchange, is irrelevant. For the consideration of, or good consideration, not applicable to a contract. Love, kindness, friendship, those sort of things are good consideration. They cannot make for a valid contract. So valuable consideration is what we're looking for here. Contract law requires the amount of earnest money to be submitted with a sales agent, with which amount of earnest money to be submitted with a sales contract. Is it A, 6% of the offer, B, at least $1,000, C, 10% of the asking price, or D, there is no earnest money requirement? Guys, you're good. Earnest money not required. Sort of the norm, but it's per the contract. Dave is told by his lender that his debt ratio exceeds the limit set by the Federal Housing Administration. Dave was hoping to get financing through the FHA because he only has 5% to put down. On the way to his apartment, Dave sees a sign in the yard, rent to own, credit problems okay. Which agreement is the best fit for Dave's situation? A, a net lease, B, a purchase agreement, C, a life estate, or D, a lease with the option to purchase? And you guys are right. The answer is D. Based on the circumstances, he should rent and then save money and have the option to purchase. Old man Jones wants to settle his affairs prior to his death by selling his land and giving the money to his children. Yeah. Broker Bob lists the property and markets it. After 6 months, an offer from Widow Smith, who lives in the next county, is received in mail. Jones immediately signs a contract without change, and Broker Bob drives it to the next county to deliver a copy to the in person. Which might prevent this from being a binding contract? A, nothing can prevent this from being a binding contract. B, Widow Smith's death. C, either Widow Smith's incompetent or she dies. Or D, she's just incompetent. Which one of these prevents the contract from being in place? So C is going to be the right answer. The 2 things that can nullify a contract like this are, or make it impossible to form a contract, are death or incapacity, right? So her death, regardless of when the transaction, when he gets there, if he relates it and she dies, like she can't be held to a contract when she's dead to purchase. And then if she's incompetent, right, if she doesn't have the mental capacity to perform a meeting of the minds and enter into a contract, you don't have a contract, right? Right, the basic requirement for an offer include A, objective intent, B, subjective intent, C, neither objective nor subjective intent, or D, both objective and subjective. Which one is it? A is the correct answer. It is objective intent. Subjective means it's subject to somebody's opinion and it's not on solid ground. Objective means, yes, I want to buy this property. No one has to assume or infer anything around the purchase. It is simply that I am offering to buy this property. Objective intent. Ben is not quite ready to purchase, so he rents a home with the option to purchase after 2 years. The option is an example of an A, promise and exchange contract, B, unilateral contract, C, mutual contract, or D, bilateral contract. All right, you guys are on it. One person's making the decision when that option comes up, which means it's a unilateral or uni for one, like unicycle, one tire. Whereas a normal purchase and sale agreement is a bilateral contract, meaning two people get to decide. Bi as in two, bicycle. Buddy wanted to offer to purchase the Walker's home. He engaged Joan to be his agent. When the offer was delivered to Mr. Walker, it contained the provision limiting the time of acceptance to 48 hours. Mr. Walker rejected the offer out of hand as inadequate. After thinking about it for 24 hours, Mr. Walker called Agent Jones and said, "Changed my mind, give me Buddy's offer." What's the status of the offer? Is it A, still open because Buddy hasn't withdrawn it? B, still open because the 48 hours haven't gone by? C, it's a binding contract now that it's been accepted. Or D, is it terminated when Mr. Walker rejected it? The answer is D, and this is an important thing to counsel your clients on. When you reject an offer, it is terminated, right? So if you want to reject an offer, you're more than welcome to. But if you reject it, we can't go back and say, okay, we accept now, right? So you're better off maximizing the time available on the offer before moving forward. All right, a meeting of the minds refers to A, consideration, B, the closing of a contract, B, the consummation of a contract, or D, offer and acceptance. It is D, offer and acceptance. You guys are right. Question number 11. A home buyer wishes to make an offer on a home, but has little money. On the contract, he puts $0 in earnest money, which is true. A, even if the seller signs the contract, the buyer is not bound. B, the contract, when signed by the seller, is fully enforceable. D, the contract is not valid without earnest money. Or, sorry, C, not valid without earnest money. Or D, the minimum is 1% of the purchase price. The answer is B. When the contract's signed, it's a contract. There's no earnest money requirement. Remember that. Question number 12. If Ed purchases a property from Susan by an installment land contract, when will title pass to Ed? A, when the seller exercises the liquidated damages clause. B, when the deed is delivered to the buyer. C, when the contract has been signed by all parties. Or D, when the deed is placed in escrow. We got B's and C's here. I think I got more. Do I have more B's and C's? Let's go that way. So Ed does not come into title until the deed is delivered, which is when all contract terms are fulfilled, right? So title with a purchase money mortgage, a normal transaction, I get a mortgage, I buy a house, title transfers at that day. Title doesn't transfer with an installment land contract or seller financing until all the terms are met. Then the deed is delivered, with which title follows. So you typically see questions of which would a seller prefer, and it's purchase money mortgage because you get title immediately instead of down the road. John, a buyer, makes an offer on Mary's home. Mary feels that offer is too low and makes a counteroffer. John isn't interested in paying any more for the original offer, so he doesn't reply. 2 weeks later, Mary's desperate to sell and accepts the original offer. Does John have to purchase Mary's home at his original price? A, yes, he's bound by the original offer. B, yes, as long as Mary signed it. C, no, John has no obligation to purchase. Or D, no, too much time has passed. Right, the answer is C, because this a counter offer is two things. It is a rejection of the first offer and the submission of a new offer. So when that rejection happens, the original offer is terminated. Game over, can't go back to it. And question number 14. Lauren receives an offer on her property and makes a counter offer. Meanwhile, another offer comes in from another broker. The listing is currently A, pending, B, withdrawn, C, contingent, or D, active. All right, here, team. Has an offer been accepted on the property? Yes or no? Put that in the chat box. No. So if there is no accepted offer, the property never stops being active, right? It's an active property because we're currently negotiating, sending, receiving, rejecting, countering offers. So it's still an active property until there's an accepted offer, right? Then the status changes. All right, Susan offered to trade her 4-bedroom, 3-story townhome near the subway for John's 1-room cabin in the mountains. I'd make that trade in a heartbeat. John promptly accepted her offer. 1 week later at Susan's attorney's office, they signed a contract setting forth the even swap. In light of the wide disparity in the values of the two properties, is Susan obligated to fulfill her side of the agreement if she changes her mind? Yes, she initiated the transaction. B, no, she was under undue influence. C, yes, if all elements of the contract are present. The adequacy and equality of consideration is not critical. Or D, no, obviously, John is taking unfair advantage. What do we think it is? It's C, guys. Valuable consideration can come in many forms, and there's no third-party judge of the equity or the equality of, the equality of the two items being exchanged. All right, we got time for one more small one, I think. Let's see, let's do, you know, what we haven't hit in a while is leasing and property management. That should be about 5 questions. That'll bring us to the top of the hour, and we can all be on our merry way for Monday. All right. Question number 1, the secretary of a property management company is authorized only to A, negotiate leases, B, take listing for the new property management job, C, show rental units, or D, keep records. It is D, keep records. Everything else would require a real estate license. Clerical work is the only thing that is a part of a secretary's job. Question number 2. Which type of estate would a tenant receive from a landlord? A life estate, B, a leasehold estate, C, a fee simple absolute estate, or D, a tenancy at sufferance? Sure, we've all leased a property at one time or another in our lives. We don't get to stay there for life, maybe for better or for worse, but the leasehold estate is what you get when you lease a property as a tenant. All right, what type of lease would you expect a residential property manager to execute on behalf of his or her landlord? A, a net lease, B, a percentage lease, C, a gross lease, or D, a land lease? You guys are right. It's a gross lease. Now, oftentimes this is going to come in the form of modified gross, which is where you pay, a set amount you pay a gross amount in monthly installments. Maybe it includes some utilities. A net lease would be where you pay, a net, a smaller amount, but pay for all utilities, taxes, and insurance. Percentage leases are something you see in retail, where you pay a percentage of the total revenue, and a land lease is usually used by farmers leasing lands to other farmers. All right, question number 4. What type of lease would be used when one farmer leases land to another farmer? You guessed it, it's a land lease. All right, last question. The broker's property management account must A, bear 6% interest, B, be accessible to the property manager and broker, C, be a part of the broker's trust account, or D, bear no interest. We're thinking B, it looks like. Thinking B. That's correct. The law allows brokers' property management accounts to collect interest. This is different than a real estate brokerage account, which cannot collect interest. The broker has to have access to that, as does the property manager. All right, gang. Want to wrap up tonight. One, I'm going to drop into the chat the link for our YouTube training page. So guys, you can go here and watch or listen to old sessions around these study sessions, excuse me. You can also see all of the awesome training that we're doing for our agents. We record everything. We do a lot of stuff on Zoom. We do a lot of stuff in person and still record it. And so if you're like chomping at the bit and just wanting to kind of wrap your head around some of the other things, there's everything in there from, our business planning clinics to our sales meetings to other trainings that are going to be relevant to all parties. So if you ever miss these usually get posted within 24 hours. So if you just want to come hear the smooth, sultry voice that is mine reading questions related to everything Ohio Division of Real Estate Salesperson exam, well, you know where to come find it. Or if you're like, hey, I know they do a lot of great training at Keller Williams Greater Metropolitan, I want to get in on that early. Go. I mean, there's stuff, the last 2 years worth of trainings are in there. Guys, as I mentioned, if you are having trouble scheduling your exam, or if you have any questions about your exam with respect to, hey, I haven't heard anything. Hey, I'm looking for, something from the division. Just reach out, let me know. I'll get you the answers that you're looking for. And whoops, didn't get that copied. And additionally, I'm putting in here in the chat box the breakdown of exam questions. I do this every week, but it's really important to understand that not all sections of the exam are created equal. So spend your time, energy, and resources focused on the sections with the largest portion. If you're struggling with anything, I'll say it again, and here's my email in the chat box again, please let me know. And if you have scheduled your exam, please make sure that I know so we can sprinkle some holy water on the ground before your exam. We can send some good vibes your way. We can do whatever we can do, because guys, listen, you didn't spend 120 hours in the classroom to take a test. You did it to become a realtor. And so this test is just one little blip on the radar to go get your real estate license. Let's rock and roll. But that'll be it for this week, guys. For those of you that are testing in the next 7 days, good luck, get it done. And I will see you on the other side of the licensing process. If anyone needs anything, let me know. Otherwise, have a wonderful evening, team.